Hey everyone, thanks for joining us when we get together every week to talk about everything and anything regarding the APR for SSS. Oh, see, 95 degrees in upstate New York. And do you have AC, Ryan, there? Huh? I wonder if you guys have it. Anyway, thanks everyone. Oh, felt like 97, right? Evansville. Um, we're gonna chat away there and chat, say hi to everyone. And also, if you can't hear me or stuff happens sometimes, and I will disappear for a little bit because of the I word. I'm not going to say it. Sometimes, wants to take a break. Um, but Donna, you know what to do. Just keep everyone at bay. And I think we were going to talk about sometimes having something else to fill in the time until I can come back in. But we're just going to be positive, right? Um, if you could put your questions in the chat, but also, I mean, your hi chats in the chat, but your questions regarding the APR, could you put those please in the Q&A so I can get to them during this session? And then also, if you'd be so kind, whenever you can, if you're talking about a particular field, please go ahead and put the field number if you have access to it or know it. Um, and yes, y'all need to talk about, ask each other. Anyone else get the GANs? I see in the chat that people are asking, does anyone have their GANs yet? Um, so let's find out about that. I haven't heard. I've heard that people have received, SSS folks have received an email asking for those three questions to be answered. They said, hey, we don't want spreadsheets, we don't want Word documents, we just want answers to three simple questions as to how much you've spent as of what, June 30th. How much do you need until your budget ends on the 31st? And then how much do you think you might have carried over, right? Sound about right? Oh, someone said we have nothing. Okay, go ahead and start preparing those answers. Go start pulling the numbers. So even if you haven't heard, hey Chantel, yes, so good to have you back. We wondered where you were at. Very, very busy. Um, I would, if you haven't already been asked, be ready because guess what? When they pop up, they say we need this by tomorrow. They give you like 48 hours to get it done. So again, how much have you spent as of June 30th? How much more do you need until August 31st? Okay, that's the second question. And the third question is how much do you think you'll have to roll over? And if someone out there has the email, you don't have, I mean, if you can copy and paste those three questions, but pretty much those are the three questions. At the same time, you should, and I will upload in the SSS APR hours, office hours, I'll upload a template for an Excel budget that has all the SSS ED categories, in the right order. And it says, how much, for 26, 27, you're going to put your expenses in. It even has formulas for fringe benefit rates and all that good stuff. So if you want to save yourself some time and trouble, just go in there and download it and then plug in your formulas. Don't take them out, but just change them so that when you play with the salaries, everything else matches. And then there'll be a column on the right-hand side that says carryover from 25, 26. So you can start doing that. Don't wait for your GANs to come out. Don't wait to get those three questions. Now is the time to start working on that because I believe that when they finally get caught up, they're going to be like, hey, we needed this yesterday. And you're going to be like, well, I didn't get my, well, I don't care. I need it by tomorrow, by the end of, the end of this week. So go ahead and work on that. Okay. Thank you. Someone is putting the questions in the chat. Excellent. And again, they're not asking for any spreadsheets or documentation to back those numbers up yet, but you should be working on an Excel spreadsheet at least for 26, 27 and a column for 25, 26 carryover, if any, and whole nother, discussion about what I think they may let you keep, what they probably won't let you keep, whatever. Okay. All right. Remember your budget period is usually, now some of y'all got GANs that started in September, end of September, because we had a delay. Remember that whole mess about, getting the money appropriated and all that stuff. So typically your budget runs September 1st to August 31st, although your GAN may say something different. Okay. But your APR reporting period is different. Your APR reporting period, and I saw this on Facebook last night, and I wanted to yell to Facebook, but I didn't get involved. But anyway, someone asked, when can somebody count for the new year, the old year? And they said, oh, yeah, you have until August 31st. And you don't. You only have until this reporting period right now that we're in, 25-26. Your year for the APR, not for the budget, but for the APR will end the day before classes start again for fall of 2026. So everybody out there, do you know when classes are going to start for fall of 2026? You have until the day before that to get all your new summer kids and everybody served, okay? You don't have until August 30, you don't have until September 1st. That's just your budget. Just your budget. You know what I mean? When you do the APR section one of the first questions on the pre-populated websites screen when you log in will be for you to answer what is the first day for the APR for 25-26, the one we're talking about. The first thing they'll ask you is what was the date of fall classes for fall of 2025. That date that you plugged in will be used to confirm Field 18 data first service for all your new students that were served in 25-26. It's got to match that happened during that period of time. Okay. On the APR instructions that are in the Google Drive and that I will be sharing as needed, it will on page one, the bottom of page one and the top of page two, it goes into 3 examples just to solidify the fact that your reporting period for the APR must match your college's academic year. The first day of fall classes is the first day of your new reporting year. Okay? So if it's August 17th, Tammy, then you have until August 16th to get all your numbers in. And then August 17th starts the new project year. Okay? All right. So let's see here. We're gonna do something a little different. I kind of want to backtrack. And again, if you have any questions, we'll get to those there in a second. Let me share the,
Lisa,
yes, ma'am.
there was a question, I think it was about the GAN. Are these budget questions in total or by budget line?
Are these budget questions by total or budget line? Oh, the 3 questions are just one number. I know, right? I mean, just like I wish someone could, did someone in the chat put the 3 questions? I think they might have,
Yes,
because
yes, they did.
okay, they want one number for the total. They just want to know, hey, total, how much have you spent? So I'm just making up numbers. So if they say, okay, they gave me $250,000. Okay, well, out of the 250, by the end of June, how much have y'all already spent? Oh, okay. Maybe I spent already 150,000 of it. Okay. The second 150 flat. So it would have been a total of all the whatever you've spent in each category, but they just want one number. The same thing for how much do you need for the rest of the year? Well, internally, I have to figure out, well, salaries and fringe, and we still have a couple of trips and a couple of things we haven't paid for. So I plan for that. So maybe I come up with another 50. Okay, I need 50, I need 50 more $1,000 for the rest of the year. So that means I may have, 50,000 left over on the third question. So you may have to do some internal per grant line, per category calculations, but they just want the one number for each of those 3 questions. Now, pretty quickly, or they may just skip it and ask for your budget for next year. Um, that will be a detailed either in Word or Excel or whatever format they send it to you in. Who knows this year? Every year, depending on your program officer, they all had different formats that they wanted you to follow to give the detail of where you want to put your money for 26-27, where you're proposing approval for that. And that'll be more detailed. So we're talking about 2 different things. Some people received an email asking just for those 3 numbers, um, and some people didn't. But I don't think anybody, let me know out there if anybody, so this is a great way to kind of talk to everybody real quick, did anyone out there receive a formal request from your program officer for your 26-27 budget in Excel or Word, detailed with a budget narrative and explaining what you're going to do with the carryover. And we'll see if anybody out there has received that specific email asking for all the details. I'd say about maybe, some people received the email about the three questions. Now, if you didn't, check your spam, check whoever they might have gone to, or you might want to email your person to see if they want that information. But you definitely don't need to wait on it. Go ahead and start pulling the answer for those three questions, which will kickstart you into drafting your detailed budget for 26-27 and have some idea about the carryover. Start working on it just so you're not caught off guard. Worst case scenario, you receive an email later this afternoon saying by Friday we want your detailed budget. And you're like, yikes. So just start working on it now, even if it hasn't been asked for, and wait until they ask for it. Okay. All right. So you should be seeing, Donna, or any other questions regarding what I just spoke about earlier?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right. So just to recap, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, or just to let us know, or just to review, in the SSS APR office hours, I mentioned this is where I would upload that Excel budget template if you want to check it out. I'll create a folder that says budget, and you can check that out. But we do have all the webinar summaries here. Each time we meet, like right now, I believe I did select that, Donna, so it is taking notes for me. I believe I selected it, yes. In addition to the recording and the webinar summary, you'll get a summary plus the link to the recording. Plus, it's also going into our YouTube playlist. Okay. Then we are also your Q&As. We are tracking those in a spreadsheet for each session. And you'll see the question being asked, the way you guys type it into the Q&A. And another thing about Q&A, it is anonymous, so you might want to go that route. I answer them live, so it'll tell you at least when during the recording you could get the answer. So you may not see the answer typed out on that report, but it'll let you know when we answered it. Okay. Then I put in a couple of quick reference guides that would help. I think I'm going to move this into the budget folder. And that's a really good document that I don't remember who I got it from, but it was really, really helpful. It's got all the links to the top 25 OMB, which are above and beyond your SSS regulations, those questions, that people say, well, where does it say this? Where does it say how long we can keep files? Where does it say when we have to ask for permission from our program officer in DC? Those are links there as well. Proposal costs. So those are above and beyond. And people tend to think, oh, they're in my SSS regulations. And they're like, they're not here. Where did I see them? Probably here in the OMB Quick Reference Guide. So I love it, love it, love it. I use it every day. I have it on both laptops on my desktop, so I can easily find it. So please, 99% of your questions you can get the answers to if you look at your regulations, plus your OMB quick reference sheet. Plus, I just got off the phone meeting with some folks that I said, you know what? You should hold on to these APR instructions, not just when you're working on the APR, but they are excellent guides and reference. They have a lot of good information to guide you throughout the year. So a lot of times I come across a situation about, during my identification, recruitment, or selection process where I'm thinking, you know what? I remember on the APR that was an issue. So I should do something right now or have a policy in place or at least have the knowledge ahead of time that if I do this now, this is where it's going to impact the APR. Where did I get that from? From the darn instructions. And the instructions are the only place where you get that in black and white where it says when your reporting period ends and starts. It's not in the OMB. It's not in your SSS regulations. It's going to be in your SSS instructions, meaning that every year they could decide to change that, but I go by that. So what you have here in the Google Drive where it says NEC draft, those are last year's instructions for 24-25 that we've updated internally by changing the years for both the instructions and the form, which shows all the fields that we're going to pick up here in a little bit. But you want to have those when you're working on your APR to reference to that, and it has a ton of great information that should help you manage the program during the year. So you want to hold on to that. Now, we have at best, right now, the best we can do is have the draft instructions. I do not think they're going to do any major changes. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with what I have right now and try to hurry up and wrap up my APR before the new year starts, before the new school year starts, as much as I can, using the 24-25 instructions that we've updated just to make it easier to read the years for 25-26. We won't get the official 25-26 instructions or the form until the website opens up, which when was it last year? Somebody in the chat, I blocked it out. Was it November or December when it was, brought out? I don't want to wait until then to work on my APR. I want to get her done, as they say, now as much as I can because it's going to be harder, or maybe it's just me, later in the year to remember what happened. I know too much and I get so confused. Okay. So those are guides there. Please utilize these documents during the year to help you out with stuff. Okay. And I'll stress that when we go through the lines of the fields because the definitions do clear up a lot of things. The new folder that I have here is called the visual guide. And in here, what I'm trying to do is whenever we talk about these lovely scenarios or situations that could be very confusing, you know how sometimes you read something and it doesn't make sense until you either live it or you have to repeat it over and over again? Or sometimes you just need a visual guide. Okay. And so last week when we were meeting and we came across a discussion about Field 22, and someone asked, well, hey, I've served 160 students, but I only have to report on 140. Should I report on all the students that I served? And we had a discussion about that. And we talked about, you know what, a lot of times we end up serving more students than we actually report on because some of them don't stick. Some of them barely get served or not served enough, or by the end of the semester, they have disappeared. And if I'm desperate for numbers because I was just shooting for a certain amount of slots, then yes, I will have to go ahead and report on them and then track them for 4 years or 6 years. But if I had recruited more, ended up serving more, I have a way to decide who gets to make the cut. I mean, obviously, if somebody has been reported before in the APR, I just can't delete them. I can make them not active, not served, and they become a prior year participant enrolled, but not receiving services, which is a code 3, and I really don't like to have a lot of those. Or there's someone who's left, and so I need a new person to fill that role. So sometimes people will tell me, well, I've got too many new students. I go, no, you don't. Let's have a discussion about how many you think you're over. And let's have a talk about how many continuing students still have no services or not enough. And then let's look at all the new students. You had 10 of them that completely dropped out of the college. We need to have a discussion about that. So anyway, one of the things that came up from that is one of our attendees was uh, offered in the chat, and this is how we share information, and we're able to do that. And I was so intrigued by that, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you've just given me another idea to do something visually." So let's see if we might have to make Ryan. I should have told you this ahead of time, Donna, so that he could speak. Is he allowed to? Okay, great. And so, Ryan, I was going to ask you if you don't mind to go ahead and share your screen. And can you walk us through Field 22 and your, idea of how this came about? And hopefully this will help other people understand that concept regarding who actually gets reported on the APR.
Can you hear me, Lisa?
Yes. Can you speak up a
So
little bit more? And I'm going to stop sharing.
I cannot share my screen. I don't have that
Oh,
permission, but I
okay.
am unmuted.
Let's see. Yes, you're on mute. And then let's see here. Okay, I can always share the
Yeah, if you
screen.
just
I'm
want to
sorry.
share,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I can do that. Let me
okay.
go ahead and take over and then let you speak. Sorry about that. I didn't think about that part. Didn't think that far ahead of time. So let me see.
I did promote him to
Yeah,
panelist. He might be able to share now. I don't know.
whatever works. That I could see it, the screen,
Okay, and
Lisa,
do
so
you
that
need me
works
to
for
make it a
me.
little bit bigger?
I could
How's
see it.
that?
I don't know about others.
How about everybody else? You let us know if you can see it. Can I see some?
I
Yep,
can
good,
see
good, good.
it.
Okay. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much for agreeing to share this. I think we, only through this community can help each other out. So I'm going to let you go ahead and explain the rationale for the this chart
Yeah, so the
for this
rationale
graphic.
behind this chart, when I started back in October of last year, and when I was asking how many TRIO students we have, my senior academic advisor said, well, it depends on how you count them, which both intrigued and frustrated me. So once I learned the dynamics of participant status or field 22, earlier this calendar year, I developed this concept map. So the blue circle is all the students enrolled at SUNY Schenectady or your college or institution.
Hmm.
The red circle is all the students I'm reporting on for this year's APR, students that were served. Some of them may be brand new to TRIO, and some of them may be prior year students. And that's what was really throwing me off, that prior year students could be both active and inactive.
Hmm.
And then I realized I also have to continue to monitor students that are no longer enrolled at the college because they engaged with TRIO within the last 4 years because we're a 2 year institution. So I was like, all right, in my head, there's got to be a way to represent all of this visually. How do those three sets overlap with each other that would make sense visually? And that's
Hmm.
what resulted in this image that's on the screen. So my new participants are getting recruited from enrollees at the college. And my twos, my continuing participants, are being recruited from prior year cohorts.
Gotcha. And the field numbers, those numbers next to each are correspond to field 22, the participant codes. And you put a nice little graphic here where it says participant status. And I don't know, I can't use my pointer to point this out. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Um, of the new participant, continuing participants code 2, prior year enrolled but not receiving services code 3, prior year participant no longer enrolled would be code 4. And so I love how it shows you the breakdown. And this is what I was trying to get to the point where we first started meeting. My first bit of advice is, hey, you need to do the APR, at least two ways. First, for all your active trio students, the 140 or the 250, the one that the number that they say that you have to serve, run that because you have a specific point of view about what their answers should be to the questions pertaining to active, certain, reported students versus your prior year students. Most of your prior year students, there'll be some code 3 students that are prior year but still enrolled that you might have to answer information as though they were active, but most of them will be not applicable. Um, some of them you'll have to double check if it's the year of their cohort that counts toward graduation and transfer or graduation. You'll have to check that. But most of the time, their answers are not applicable for the majority of the fields because they're not enrolled anymore. You know, so Ryan, I want to thank you a lot for sharing that, and I want to share how you've inspired me to always, whenever we meet, depending on what we talked about, and this was a big part of what we talked about last time, to go ahead and make a visual to help out because I know that some folks need that. And I think we can create a library of those things. So every time we meet, I'm going to try to take something to make a visual of it. Or if you all want to share, Ryan, you got anything else up your sleeves you'd love to
Probably
share,
because
let me
this
know
is
because right, because this is how you were able to understand it, correct? And explain it to others.
yes, this is how I finally made sense of it. And then I was telling Lisa yesterday what this inspired was for this coming academic year. I'm putting one of my full timers on potential new participants and putting a different one of my full timers on recruiting those threes so that we minimize the threes and convert as many of them back to twos as we can.
I love it. So you see, now you can have some strategy to your recruitment and retention instead of just get anybody or anyone you haven't seen. Now specific staff are assigned to get new students, and then another staff member said, look, you need to find those threes and possibly, Ryan, keep an eye on those twos that last year were active, but we cannot assume that in the new school year, because stuff could happen just because they're enrolled and they were active, very active in the previous year. Someone's got to keep tabs on them by running reports to make sure they start coming in for services. Otherwise, you might end up by the end of the semester with a bunch of threes or that accidentally that didn't receive services that may be leaving and not come back for the spring or the summer anymore. And they're gone and you'll have to recruit new students. So I really love that part where you're using it also as a way not only to train or to understand the concepts, because I don't think these concepts, to me initially, they didn't make sense until I lived it and then can see it. But then when you're planning on your recruitment, instead of blind identification and recruitment, at least you have some method to the madness, so to speak. And it ties into the APR and it ties into the codes. So we're under that understanding. And with more time that goes by, then those concepts get instilled and not as what. And so now, like the question you got, well, how many people were serving? In fact, just this week, I'm getting emails from folks that have inherited a program. And their main question is, we're not sure which students to report on. And it's a great question. So something like this will be very, very helpful for those folks that are trying to learn the concept. It sounds like a simple question, but it's actually quite complicated as to which students do we report on. Okay. Ryan, thank you so much. I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to that.
I'll just point out the gray circle here on the bottom left is to
Yes,
complete the visualization. All students who were enrolled at my institution at some point, but are no longer enrolled and never engaged with Trio. So that would be the last set of students.
there you go. And that's where they're in the sad little gray box, right? Or circle. They're the sad little gray circle
Yep.
of the
Never learned
disenrolled.
what Trio was. Never had a chance.
Yeah, see, everybody else is touched with color. Thank you, Ryan, so much. And like I said, you've inspired me to do my own little visual, which thank you. I got feedback from Ryan saying, Lisa, that's like a little too much. And I always go overboard. So thank you. I mean, I need someone to tell me, you might want to split that up. So you can still see my screen, right? I'm going to show you, and thank you, Ryan, again so much for helping me out with that and inspiring. And you even have a shout out here on the visual guide here. I'm going to number them, and this is based on y'all can see this too. This is in there. Yes, thumbs up. I'm so bad about showing stuff. Yes, okay, thank you. Talking about stuff that I'm showing and the people are like, what? So here's another way. Here's inspired by Ryan's graphics. I went ahead and did this off of the notes that we talked about, understanding the differences between students served, counted, and students reported. And I think this is going to help a lot when I get those questions from administrators that are basically now in the position of doing the APR because they have no or a brand new director that wasn't there. A way for me to explain in addition to the breakdown in the APR regulations and all that stuff, sometimes a visual, combined with what Ryan has, combined with this, is a good little overview. So when you get a chance, you can check that out. And, who also is, these, you got all enrolled, students eligible, students accepted. Then you have current year participants, which are your new, plus your continuing, plus your new summer kids, either field 8 or 9. It talks about the field. Then the project determines which participants will count toward the funded to serve number. Projects often recruit and serve more students than they ultimately report on. And then they include in the APR, of course, their current year participants also count toward the number. So your new and your current year participants. And then we have prior year participants that are also are reported on the APR. I got an email today saying, you know what, we're funded to serve 140 students, but our APR that I looked at here turned in last year was for 273. Why are there more than 140? That's someone new to SSS. So this is something I'm going to send them to let them know it's not just about your 140, it's about these prior year participants that do not count toward your 140, but you're still tracking them. And there's your little shout out, Ryan, about helping us out. And then Ryan said, you know what? Because I had some other stuff on here. He goes, you might want to put it on the second page where the key concept about the APR fields and related resources here. Basically, my take here on the key concept, and then your important APR fields, field 18 Field 21, which is a student cohort year. Field 18 is the date of first project service. And Field 22, those fields always need to make sense. And if you tell me I don't need a student's name, I don't need any information, I just need to know what you have for 18, 21, and 22. And if you give me those three bits of information, we can pretty much figure out the rest of that student's story with what you know. But it always goes back to 18, 21, and 22. And then we've got related resources, and I think we have some infographics to take you to those free resources. In your Google Drive, you get all these items here. I'm also starting Elisa's Take Learning series, which will be on our free resources, hopefully by the end of this week. And then you also can find out a little bit about the services we provide. I'm going to click this here and take you very quickly to a resource guide. You can see the website here. Okay, so everybody on here, I think you're by default, you become free members, and you can go to our web page, go to the resources tab, and here we're really trying to beef this up. You have a lot of downloadable resources here that takes you to another Google Drive that has things separated in folders. Plus, all our free stuff is here, what you guys are attending right now. And we also have our prep for any of you out there that work for Talent Search or Upward Bound APR. We have a webinar for those. And then we've got a bunch of free webinar recordings that might be helpful, the old ones from the previous years, and some general ones out in the open, and also a link to our YouTube channel, some discussion groups. All this is for free. You get it for free membership. Let me take you to the browse free resources real quick if you haven't checked that out. Here's also where we have a tab for budget management, some information about compliance assessments. If you're worried about executive orders and you're writing something and you want to get a check there from that to make sure you're on the right page or using the right or avoiding certain terms, you've also got some financial forms there, onboarding checklists, order forms, participant checklists. These are all, hopefully, they cover all of the programs. Some of them are the same for all the TRIO programs, and some of them are specific to SSS, Upward Bound Talent Search, and a couple of other items that we found, verification documentation policies, uniform guidance, and about economic literacy resources, and also some free information that we find. We just throw it up here just so you could see. It's stuff that we don't even provide, but we found out other people were doing it. So check that out. You get that for free. Like I said, on this page, we're going to have Lisa's take, and it'll always include a little bit of a graphic to cover, like this week's take on SSS will be when is it allowable? I forget the title of it, Donna. What was the title of it? I sent it to you. When can SSS help out the institution? Something like that. When and still be in compliance? Because some of y'all, let me know. Thumbs up. Are you getting asked sometimes or certain times of the year for SSS staff to help out in other parts of the institution or for events and things like that? Does that happen? Okay. And this is just my take on it. Notice I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying that. It all depends. Okay. It all depends. So that's coming out later this week. We're going to put on a blog post, but also it'll be here, and I'll always have a link. And another one that we're going to talk about is when can you use FAFSA for documentation of low income? Okay, that's also a very complicated concept. And, should I go completely digital or do I need to keep hard copy files? Stuff like that. I'll just give you the regulations and then the links to get to the regulations, and then I'll offer my take on it, my recommendation, but also give you the citation. So you might want to look at that. Anyway, just wanted to do that. And now I'm going to go back to the APR and pick up. Donna, do we have any questions on anything I've covered, or folks maybe waiting to get back to the APR?
There are a couple of questions. I'm not sure if I'm
Do
not
you want me
sure
to
what
look?
kind of
And
questions they
yeah,
are.
I'll look. And then can you tell me, can you all see the on my screen the
I'm still
APR
I'm
section one,
still
part
seeing
one?
the website.
Okay, see, thank you. So I'm gonna move that over there and share. So I'm gonna stop sharing because sometimes I have to do that again. And now, oh, I know why, because I switched over to the nom. I got it now. I got it now. I get it. So let me look at the questions here. All right, so now you can see it. FYI, see
Yes.
here, question 4B, first day of classes at granting institution. That'll always be blank every year. All this other stuff may be pre-populated, like your award number, type of institution, even your address. But 4B, and it says reporting period. It goes by your first day of classes, not your budget period. Okay, we just finished all 7 new participant orientations. Yay. We secured about 215 applications and we still need 14 students. Okay. We're hosting 4 Zooms prior to August 19th, which is the first day of fall classes, with various campus partners and those eligible students that attend. Um, and those eligible students that attend can be the 14 students that we select. Yes, as long as you, with your Zoom reports, you have verification that they attended. So if anyone asked, how do you prove that, you met with them virtually? Hey, I got Zoom reports. Okay. During that workshop, and again, you may call it orientation, but internally, by the end of that orientation or that end of the Zoom meetings, just make sure that that meeting covers at least 2 services, just in case, covers at least 2 permissible or required services for SSS. Okay? It can't just be welcome to the program. This is who we are. This is what we do. You could do that, but by the end of that session, you want to make sure they receive at least 2 services. Okay? So, yes, so that's great. And someone said, income eligibility question. Our application asks students for their taxable income, yes, to determine income eligibility. When our financial services department has more information on the eligibility that differs, what information will we need for the APR from the financial services? Okay, great question. Let me now remember, financial aid office, 90% of the time they can only give you, if they give you anything, right? Anybody out there having issues getting any information from financial aid? Well, that's, that's happening a lot. So you're probably not the only one doing that. But if you get information from financial aid regarding income eligibility, most of the time they can only give you adjusted income. Correct me if I'm wrong out there, but last I saw on the FAFSA, they asked for adjusted income, and we go by taxable income, like you mentioned. They go by adjusted. The only way they would have taxable income to give you is if the student had been flagged for verification, and the verification process usually requires the student to upload their parents, if they're dependent, their parents' tax forms or transcript from the IRS. And then that transcript needs to have the taxable income. Back in the day when it was just uploading or turning in their paper, complete tax form, um, you could get taxable income directly from there. But it's only if they're selected for verification, and I think only 35 to 40% of the students are selected. Um, so that's the thing with financial aid. Just because they give you an income amount, you got to check to make sure it's taxable. If it's adjusted, it's only going to help you if that adjusted income for the number of people in the household is so low that when you compare it to the taxable income for trio chart, that it's at or below what it would be for taxable. So the only solution there, or the only outcome, is that, well, if their adjusted is that low, that means their taxable is 0. So that's the way you could justify that that student is low income based on taxable income. But the majority of the time, the information you get from financial aid for the low income eligibility is not going to be the same definition because they go by adjusted. And more people qualify for TRIO if you go by taxable. The downside is the only way to usually get taxable income quickly is from looking at or asking to see parents' tax forms. That's been an issue. So we're also allowed to ask for written statements from parents, either through a link that they sign digitally, where you ask them how many people in the household, and you specifically ask for their taxable income. And then they plug in the amount and you go by that. And again, sometimes they give you adjusted because they may not understand the questions. So the low income thing has always been a headache, but so I have a love and hate relationship with it. I love it because more people qualify as low income, but I hate it because it's so hard to get. Okay. To answer your other part of your question, from financial aid, you probably need to get, unless you have access to the screen, the amount of financial aid they receive for Field 35. Provide the dollar amount of the financial aid received of each participant as determined by the financial aid office. Do not include grant aid. So you have to exclude grant aid from that if they do get it, and you put that in Field 36. But 35 is the amount they received, which is which is different from the amount. You know how they back in the day, I don't know if they still do this. They said this is how much you're eligible to receive. And maybe they're turning down loans. I don't know if they take them now, but back in the day, just what you were offered may not equal to what you received. So technically, this needs to be what financial aid was received. I've talked to some folks where they were completely shut out from financial aid information for whatever reason. They couldn't get it. Hey, we're on the same side, we're under the same, part of the department. Help me out here. It's on my APR. They didn't care. So I told them, just document that you tried, and if they won't give it to you, just leave it blank and wait for the department to say something. And they have turned it in, and they've never got a pop-up window. Maybe this year they might get a pop-up window since no one had any financial aid received. But then they could respond to, well, I asked for it, and maybe y'all can get it from them. It's not toward an objective. It's not a critical field. Field 36 is only if you all awarded grant aid, and you should have those records internally. So hopefully that answered your question. Are we allowed to request tax documents during the TRIO SSS application process? My previous director required them, and I continue the practice, but I'm unsure whether we should be using the current year's taxes or the prior year. Okay, great question. So in the regulations, which again, I can upload because those are the same across the board. That's part of the umbrella regulations. By the way, when you go into the free resources hub, Donna, don't we have that? That is our free course, I believe, right?
Yes,
For
it's
the
available.
umbrella regulations. Okay.
Mhm.
So I strongly recommend, and do you mind putting a link to that in the chat to that specific webinar? Because all the TRIO programs, the definition of low income is spelled out there, and also the documentation that you can use, okay? And it spells out the 3 or 4 things that you can use, but it doesn't mean you have to get all 3 or 4 things. So what your director was using in the past, and requiring the tax documents, that would be to me the best way to get to see for myself what the taxable income is and how many people in the household. That's the best way to see that information. But to make it a requirement could really be hurtful to your recruitment, because we're part of financial literacy, or just in life skills. We tell our students and other people and my parents, don't give anybody your social security number. Don't share those forms with strangers. And when we're brand new to these students and parents, we're strangers. So it's weird, but these regulations, the umbrella regulations that are, basically the same for any TRIA program as to what qualifies as, documentation for low income, are over 60 years old. So back in the day, yeah, turning in your tax forms, even when I started TRIO in 94, it wasn't weird or suspicious or looked upon like, are you crazy? I'm not going to give you my tax forms now. It was like, okay, here you go. So this is where, you know what? Sometimes what's the most accurate way to get taxable income doesn't work out to be the most effective way to get people to apply so you can get to that part. It could turn people off, it could turn them away if it's a requirement. That's why we switched over in SSS specifically, and also all the programs, Talent Search, Upward Bound, to the written statement, which is another option. You don't have to have a signed tax form plus a signed written statement. It's one or the other. So we utilize, for most of the programs I manage, the written statement from the parent or from the independent or dependent student regarding these questions. where we ask how many people in the household, what's the taxable income, sign it. Now, the director that used to require the tax forms has a valid point that, well, how do I know this looks wrong? I said, yeah, probably so. Let's call the parent up or the person up and say, you know what? I think you gave me adjusted income. I'm actually looking for what's on where it says taxable. Can you give me that amount? I'll send you a new form. That's the amount I need. So it's back and forth. It's back and forth. So the director's saying, hey, we're just going to go for tax forms. Well, there's no back and forth there. But nowadays, you may not even get someone to apply if you make that a requirement. You see what I'm saying? So although in theory, or this makes sense to go just for the tax forms, it may not work in getting people to apply because they're like, I don't know you. I'm not going to give you that information. Okay, so let's use the written statement, but I probably eventually will bug you about telling me what's on your tax form so we can make it work. So again, when you ask for taxes, though, according to the regulation, it's the prior year's taxes. So we're in 2026 right now, so we're looking at 2025 taxes. Here's where we also differ with financial aid. So that's why it's not perfect. The information you get from financial aid, even if it's the adjusted income on the FAFSA, is prior year. And in TRIO, it's prior year. So there's a little bit difference there. So to be absolutely correct, you really should be going by just prior year for TRIO. There has been a memo, it came out a couple of years ago where the department said, oh, we get it. We'll let you guys get adjusted income, which you can convert, which you can, if it's low enough, for taxable income, or if they were selected for verification and financial aid has prior tax forms that say taxable income, we'll let that slide. But the regulation says we're prior year and FAFSAs are prior. So it's not a perfect fit like it used to be. Or I don't know if it was we were ever using the same income. Okay. So again, you should be using prior year's tax forms. Okay. Any other questions? I don't think so, right? Let me backtrack here.
No, no more questions.
Thank you. Let me go back and let's see how far I can get. We were on field I think 22, right? I mean, yeah, 22 was loaded. Oh, and this is also something that popped up. Page 10, the bottom of page 10. Look at the drama associated with field 22. Um, well, here. It starts here on page 9. And everything's nice and neat here, right? And then they start breaking down the types of students that we have. And then it gets really interesting here. I saw a question last night about students who were enrolled at the college prior to the summer component, prior to the summer, but they were not served until the summer. And they were asking, can I count them as next year's cohort? And this is why I have this highlighted. This is very, very important, especially some of y'all that are recruiting students still. Let's say you have a student who was enrolled in the fall and spring or just fall or spring of this current year. Okay. But you didn't know about them or you didn't provide your first service until the summer. According to this, they can't be new summer kids and their cohort cannot be 26, 27 because it says here, this definition does not include a student enrolled at the grantee institution prior to the summer session who was already there, but who received services for the first time during the summer. This individual is not considered a new summer student. They would be actually a new participant in field 22 option 1 and would be in the 25-26 cohort. Okay? Now, what could happen, and they're not telling you here, and the same thing for a student who's not taking any classes. That was the thing. Oh, they're not here taking any classes, but they were here in the fall and the spring as a regular student. I just didn't know about them, or we didn't select them. We didn't get to serve them until the summer. The problem that will pop up is with field 18. If you say that student received their first service in the summer, it's going to want you to make them a summer student. So you're going to have to fudge on something here. You might have to change the date of first service to occur sometime in the spring semester so that it matches with someone who's new. Because typically when you put that their data for service field 18 is sometime in the summer, it's going to say, oh, error message, this needs to be a new summer kid. Well, this is telling you I can't make them a new summer kid. So look at page 10. It should guide you. Then you decide what you do. Are you going to count them? Do you need them? Well, they can't be a new summer kid. You're going to have to make them regular new. So then that data for service is going to have to change. Okay. So anyway, field 23, enrollment status. People spend a lot of time on this field. This is enrollment status by the end of this academic year of 25-26. So you already have the answers for the majority of your students who are not taking any summer classes, right? They're done. They were done in May. So you know what they took in May. I'm sorry, what they took in fall of 2025 plus spring of 2026. You add those total number of hours that they were enrolled in, and it says credit hours. And so you would put the total. Okay, so it's a combination. It's of what they took in the fall, if anything, plus the spring, something or anything, doesn't mean all three semesters, but maybe they just did 2 semesters. So that would be your answer there. Is it a critical field? No. But I see a lot of people really stuck on this field. So I'm not saying don't bother with it or don't worry about it. I'm just saying, based on their definitions, do the best you can. Some people will say, well, you know what? I have an ESL SSS, and we have a lot of students that are taking non-credit courses. Well, then I wouldn't count those. It says credit courses, credit hours. Okay, but it's not a critical field. No one gets hurt if that answer for some reason is wrong. Okay. Now, a little tidbit here for all your new students, regular new students, Field 20 was asking, hey, how many hours did they take at the end of their first year, which is this year? Whatever you put in Field 20 as to, hey, how many hours did they take at the end of their first year has to equal 23. Hey, how many hours did they take this year? After someone is reported as new, for every subsequent year, then you only have to update 23 as to what they ended up taking every year. Okay. And that's sometimes a pain because everyone has to do that for all their 140 students individually. You got to look that up. But at the same time, you're probably looking at their GPA, their financial aids. So, when you go in there to update the APR for each student, get as much as you can from that screenshot that you have available so you're not going back and forth. Okay. Academic standing, we're finally reaching one of the critical fields that ties into the objective on academic standing, which is the second objective for all of us. Academic standing. You kind of have to answer 25 before you answer 24, which is crazy because usually for most of us, if not all of us, our good standing definition is based on GPA, cumulative GPA. So you have to figure out or look up their students' GPA, and depending on your grant, what your grant said was good standing. I just met with someone this morning that their definition for the trio for the university it's 2.0, but when we wrote the grant we couldn't show a need, so we purposely latched on to a definition that the college had for, I forget who it was, maybe it was the nursing program. They said, well, it's 2.0 for general, but for nursing it's 2.5. Well, they latched onto that because they had to show need. So anyway, she had to look and she said, yeah, it's 2.5 is our good standing. So anybody with a 2.5 or higher, go back to field 24 and it would say good standing or not good standing. And 24 and 25 directly tie into your if you met your objective for the good standing. Okay, so you want to make sure that's absolutely correct. Then we get into fields 26, which is asking about their grade level at the beginning of 25-26. Again, you have these pull down menus, you can't modify them, so you're kind of stuck with these. So again, 26 and 27 just need to make sense, meaning that if I said at the beginning of the year the student was a senior, I can't for 27 go back and say they were first year. That doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense to the APR if someone started as first year, never attended, and maybe they had transfer credits that came in, and truthfully, they are now a second year sophomore, but the APR doesn't like that. It thinks that, oh, if you're a first year here, then you have to go to first year here. So sometimes you have to be wrong to be right to make it work. Otherwise, it'll say it's an error message. Okay. So it just needs to make sense. People can stay the same. People could have started the year as a third year and ended the year as a third year. It just needs to make sense. Okay. You can't go backwards in time. And of course, if someone is a prior year student, they're a code 99 because they're not enrolled. Okay. So it just needs to make sense. And again, a lot of people worry about that. Just make it make sense. It's not a critical field. Okay. Date of last service should show up on the spreadsheet for everybody who is active or served. Even though your database may have a date, most of the databases, when they convert to the Excel file, will have the eights here as not applicable. So on this field, 28, for your students that are prior year students, you would have a date somewhere in the previous year where they had stopped receiving services or in a year before that. But anybody who is counted as active and served for this year, even though they may have left or graduated in the middle of the year, it's still going to be eights. Okay, because the APR doesn't understand that somebody was here for half a year and served for half of a year. If you start turning them off and put the date of last service and put that they're gone down here for 29 and 30, then your numbers will go down. It'll say, oh, you didn't serve 140. According to this, because you turned them off for 25, 26, you're down to 139, 138. Oh, no, 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 I served them. Well, you leave them turned on for the whole APR. And then the first thing you do when you start the new year on the first day of fall classes for fall 2026 and you roll over your database into 26, 27, that's when you make that student not active, not served, but reported. Either they dropped out part of the year, in the middle of the year, or they graduated. But if they receive services and you're counting them toward your funded to serve, you have to act like they were here for the whole year on the APR. And you know what? We're going to stop there because that's a good place to come back to next time and have that whole discussion about what do we do with students that leave in the middle of the year that we served. Because sometimes we try to do things you ever heard you could be so right you're wrong, that well they're gone, they graduate in December, Lisa. I said, yeah, I know, I get it, but the APR doesn't get it. If you say they're gone, they're going to say they're gone for the whole year and your numbers to serve have gone down. You don't turn them off until the next year. Okay, anyway, I hope that's clear as mud, right? Anyway, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Ryan, if you're still with us, for joining us. Hopefully this is helpful, and we'll have the recording and the meeting notes on there. And then if you have any questions in the meantime, or if you want to email me ahead of time of stuff that you want us to cover, please let us know. I hope this is being helpful. I hope I'm not confusing folks. Just a way to help each other out. Don't forget, download these instructions. They're good to have year round. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Leah. Thanks for all your help. I got to go do a training now. Y'all take care. Oh, was there any other questions? No, we're still okay.